So Barringer Fox Wingard the third. Nailed it. So welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on. And freelance artist, nomadic, Canada, US. So when you say freelance artist, what is it? What is it that you do?
I am having sound issues all of a sudden.
Actually, you're having sound issues now? Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sounds like we're back to good. So okay. I have been an artist since, forever. I always drew growing up and whatnot, but I never really knew what to do with it. And I ended up going to a trade school and did a computer animation course, which really meant a lot to me. Like, I really dove into it. It was more the sculpting, digital sculpting that I really got into. And by about 2001, 2002, that turned into a gig doing video games and a couple smaller, like, kids cartoon movie style projects with some Disney guys. And shortly thereafter, about 2005, I ended up moving. Well, I started working for a company called Massive Black out of San Francisco. And they were really just a big collective of amazing artists from all over the world, really. I think most of us were from the US, but quite a few people from Europe and everywhere else. And it was, more than anything else, it was just an art collective started by a guy named Jason Manley, who created conceptart.org back in the day. So he basically just picked and chose amazing artists from that site to try and build this outsourcing company. So we ended up doing video games, commercial projects, all sorts of stuff like that for years. And then after that, I worked for a company called Perpetual Entertainment on a Star Trek video game. And then I made the switch to film, and I started working for Phil Tippett from Tippett Studios. He's a guy who built the original Jabba the Hutt and stuff. So he's huge guy in the industry. I did a couple projects with them and took a couple of years off, and then dove back into VFX again with the movie Thor. It was my first one back in 2011 or 2010, I believe. And I worked in Vancouver, Canada, on and off, mostly on, for about the next 8 years. And my last film was Avengers: Infinity War. And I was part of the team that built the Thanos model that got us the gig at Digital Domain, being the primary caretaker of the Thanos model before, along with Weta and ILM. And just after pre-production, I decided I was done with VFX for a while, and I moved back to the States. I'm now in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm working on comic books, which was always kind of my true love to begin with and how I got into everything else, and doing other freelance projects. So
that's awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, especially a huge fan of the Marvel, the MCU. So that's dope. That's dope. Like, so designed Thanos.
Well, Thanos, has already been designed by comic creators for years. And then there's a couple of guys over at the Marvel Studios. They have some conceptual artists of their own who roughed out the basic idea 2D of what he would look like. And my job was to basically, what happened was ILM, or I guess Marvel at this point, had the base sculpture of the Hulk that they used for the previous Avenger films. So they sent that to Digital Domain. Digital Domain handed that to me. And then I took that base kind of construct of what, super huge, bulky, like more monster frame looked like. And I turned him into more like what you see on screen of Thanos today. So that was kind of the first step. And I worked with the guys who did the team, worked on the Josh Brolin kind of head concepts for what he would look like. And then we kind of brought everything in together along with some different costumes we designed. And we did our initial screen test of Thanos sitting in a throne and Josh Brolin doing a voiceover where he's talking to Loki and kind of respecting him, but dissing him at the same time. And he just sits there and does simple movements with his hands while he's talking to Loki. And I went in and I sculpted every single frame of the project because it was early in pre-production. So we didn't have muscle systems or anything created at that point. So I sculpted every single frame basically to make sure his anatomy looked as perfect as possible for this introduction to Thanos that we were going to show to Marvel Studios. And they really dug it. So we ended up with the Thanos lead and eventually a whole bunch of his minions and other characters.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's incredible. Since you work mostly with like CGI and animation, how have you been impacted by the current state of affairs? Have you been able to still, work remotely?
Well, like I said, I left at around 2018. I left Canada. So I kind of left the VFX industry at that point, and my goal was to focus on my own projects for a couple of years. So in that situation, I basically just went off on my own, and I drew my own comic book, or at least the prologue to my first comic book, Dark Sub Rosa. And that was a really fun project, and I'm actually about to start working on issue number 1 now. I worked on a few other projects in between, hired gigs. There was another comic book that I started working with a bunch of guys that I met at some of the conventions. Well, that's basically what I started doing. I came to town, started working on my own comic while doing the Southeastern comic convention scene, setting up booths at all the different shows and doing a bunch of traveling. I think the last 6 months of 2019, I did about 13 or 14 different shows. So I was keeping pretty busy traveling all over the Southeastern United States doing that. It was a lot of fun. It's not something I'd done before. Staying in motels and everything every few weeks gets a little annoying, but it's a fun gig. It's selling my prints, doing my thing, working for myself. And I really enjoyed that. So that has been affected dramatically by our current situation. My last show was in February, Captain's Comic-Con here in Charleston. And it went fairly normal because word about coronavirus, I mean, it was out, but I think we were all being I don't know if the word is misled, but they were claiming it wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. So we all figured, let's do one more show, see if we can squeeze a couple more in. But it was the end of February when we kind of all realized all shows are getting canceled for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember that was March 12th was my last gig. And you're right, there was a lot of misleading information, if just not unreleased information. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was a confusing time. February, March. Yeah.
Yeah, well, luckily, my wife, she just said, "Hey, listen, the buck stops here. We're not doing jack shit," and so that was the smart decision. I was pretty much on the same boat too, and I figured, I pretty much had a setup to where I could work remote, I could work from home, editing or live streaming, and we were doing pretty well anyway, to where we had the savings, we had the nest egg, and we had the investment that, if I had to go on unemployment, that wouldn't be the end of the world, but I didn't really have to. The virtual stuff started kicking in April. A lot of the remote stuff and virtual stuff. So definitely blessed in that regard. But yeah, I think for us, it wasn't necessarily confusion. It was just maybe more fear and a heightened concern, especially because we had a newborn. So it was just this heightened concern. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, with the exception of have you been partaking in any of the virtual Comic-Cons? Because I know there's a lot of conventions that went virtual.
I personally haven't. I've seen a few of them pop up here and there. I had actually started a project, with all the people I'd worked with at all the different conventions. I had started a project called SEAS, the Southeastern Artist Showcase, where I got 35 different artists to all contribute to a book. And that we kind of ended up turning into something of a convention type thing. We went on Kickstarter, and we're offering buttons and stickers and all the kind of swag that you would get at the conventions. Unfortunately, the Kickstarter wasn't successful. I think we put our numbers a little too high. We were looking for like 15,800. We ended up at about 11,200, something like that. and we had about $3 more grand to put in ourselves if we had to, but without those other numbers hitting, we just kind of let it die. I still hope to do something with the project. The book is pretty much done, so we'll probably seek publishers down the line for that. But it was kind of more of just a passion project for myself, and like connecting all these different artists at these conventions who I didn't feel like really had great representation outside of these shows.
Yeah.
Not many of them, I mean, there's some fantastic artists in there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them weren't working full-time professionally. And I thought this might be a good place for them to like get their work out there in a book, you know, and just really show off what they can do to everybody who I don't think normally got the chance to see all these different diverse variety of artists. So, you know, I'll revisit that in some time, but no, personally, I haven't done any of the virtual Comic-Cons. I started working on another comic book the end of 2019, and that went for about 6 months. And I parted ways with those guys after the first book was finished. And other than that, I did a commercial for Virginia, a mail-in voting commercial, and it turned out really great. You said you're kind of in the DC area, right?
Yeah, DC area, yeah.
I don't know how far that commercial is being spread, but I know they're showing it in your area. So that's kind of cool. It was a fun project. It was only a little over a week's work, but you know, it was fun for me to do. I got to draw all my own characters, all my style. So, you know, just trying to stay busy.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. And yeah, I've had plenty of unsuccess with Kickstarter and Indiegogo myself, so I get it. I put some projects. Sorry about that. I put some projects out there, and you know, I had a certain budget in mind and came nowhere. You almost hit your mark. I didn't even come anywhere close to. I think it's, if I'm doing my math right, it sounds like you got like 80% to your goal, and I don't even think
if we thrown in our extra cash that we put aside for it, we would have been about 85%, I think it was. But without that, we were about 67%. So, you know, I was proud of how we did, but obviously it would have been nice to bring it home, you know?
Yeah, I don't even think I got like 10% close to my goal. So like, I don't think anybody was just interested in my short film at all. We shot like a promo teaser, but this was, I think this was about 10 years ago. And I tried to revamp it again and still nothing. So just, you know, kind of doing like my own thing, like the podcast, you know, I can do this relatively for free essentially. So,
yeah.
Have you been watching anything, binge watching, binge reading, studying, or just for inspiration or escape?
Yeah, all the time, all of those. Yes, and yes. The show I've been watching lately, you know, we can't binge it because they're only releasing one a week, but The Boys, I've been really digging. I thought season 1 was fantastic.
Yeah.
Season 2, it hasn't had quite that hit to me, and my wife actually phrased it pretty well. She said in the first season she really like cared about a bunch of the characters and what would happen to them and how they're feeling, you know, going through these experiences. And she said she doesn't really care about anybody in the second season. They're all just kind of dicks, you know?
Yeah. We I binge watched it. I think I finished season 1 in a day, maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
It was really freaking good. And I tried to get the wife into it. She wasn't really interested in like the first 5 or 10 minutes. And she always does this where I finished it. It was so good to me. I finished it in a day. And then she's like, okay, I'll give it a chance. So hurry up because the second season's coming out in a month. And so I guess that was what, August or September. I was binge watching the first season. And then so I think she got a couple episodes in, 3 or 4. She was really into it. I think she stopped for whatever reason. She stopped again. I said, babe, I'm gonna start watching the second season without you if you don't catch up. And yeah, so is Prime releasing an episode a week, or does Prime do the whole thing right out the gate?
Well, it goes back and forth. For season 2 of The Boys, they're doing every Friday. They release a new one. Well, they released, I think, the 3 on the first day, and then 1 every week after. But I thought they usually released everything at the same time.
See, streaming services are starting to do things differently now. So even Netflix with Letterman's my next guest is ... or whatever the name is.
Yeah.
That's weekly, or it was weekly. But generally Netflix does everything just the whole season. You know, Hulu is like 50-50. Hulu will have a show, the whole season's ready. But Handmaid's Tale is weekly. I know that.
That's what, HBO or something?
Handmaid's is Hulu, I think.
Oh, Hulu. All right.
And so Hulu will do some shows immediately. Hulu will do some shows weekly. And now it looks like Prime's doing the same thing, because I think oh my God, Hunters, which was freaking phenomenal. I don't know if
I really dug that one too.
Yeah,
that was a good show.
I think that was the whole thing at once. I think
so too, because we went through it really fast.
Yeah. And I think I knocked that out in like a day or two. Also, it just couldn't put it down. You know.
Oh, and they wrapped it up well too. Like, you know, it doesn't even need another season. It was a perfect entity in and of itself right there. I prefer when they do it that way. When they like, it's nice to allude to there could be something more, but I like when it's just nice and wrapped up and tight and done after a season. Like
that, and a hell of an ending.
Yeah, totally.
A hell of an ending. Like, I didn't see any of that coming. And spoiler alert to any of our viewers for Hunter, spoiler alert. But it never even dawned on me that she was Eva Braun.
Yeah, totally.
Never looks, because they kind of like dolled her up, kind of like Eva Braun. And it never even dawned on me. They called her the Colonel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Colonel.
Colonel, yeah.
And
no, I thought the whole, I didn't see it coming, and I feel like usually I could figure something out well before, and maybe I just was off my game, but no, it took me, it surprised me. I really enjoyed it. There was another series we watched, Lock and Key. Did you watch that one?
Those are the names of the guys, right?
No, that's the name of the book, Lock and Key.
Lock and Key. No.
Locke is the name of the family in the book, Locke. But anyway, I was really looking forward to the series because it's written by Stephen King's son, the graphic novel. I can't think of his name right now, but that is one of my favorite comic books of all time. Between his writing and the art, it's a series everyone should read. And they had fun with the TV show, but I feel like they took what was a whole story, which was 5 graphic novels, and they kind of forced it all into one season.
Yeah.
Not really the way they should have gone with that one, I don't think. And it was kid-friendly enough that I think they could have developed a big base of people who would have followed that up season after season. So it kind of surprised me they took that route. But nonetheless, Lock and Key, the graphic novel, Joe Hill is the writer's name.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
That's Stephen King's son?
Stephen King's son, yes.
Oh, okay.
And they recently did another TV show on Netflix together. It was a thing with the grass or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Into the tall grass?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That was astounding.
I thought it was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
super
that was
creepy.
Fun. Super creepy. Yeah, is that the one? That was the one where, like, the kid ran out and went back into the church.
Yeah.
Super creepy. Super creepy. My wife just hates stuff where she's like, well, I hate watching stuff with her where she's like, oh, that can never happen. And I'm like, that's not the point, man. Stop watching this stuff with me. Stop watching this stuff with me. But apparently she likes the boys, but that can never happen. Oh, she's a huge Game of Thrones fan. Of course, yeah, ice zombies and women who give birth to dragons. But I guess that could happen. Apparently, that's historical fact.
Well, it's a lot sexier, so more willing to let it happen. You know.
I'm sure. But Lock and Key. I was gonna. Like Walking Dead. Walking Dead diverted, and Game of Thrones diverted from the books because they just had to kick the content out there. The guys, the 2 authors of the 2 properties just weren't finished writing their story, and they said, well, that's fine. We'll just keep
Yeah.
making the show this way. You make Walking Dead. You write and release the graphic novels of Walking Dead that way. We'll do the show this way.
Well, it's kind of funny because Robert Kirkman was pretty far along with Walking Dead by the time the TV show started. And that first episode of Walking Dead, it was like the first issue of the comic book, almost to a T. But then for the rest of the like first and second season on the TV show, they just totally left any of the concepts in the book. And honestly, I didn't like them as much. I was like, wow, the graphic novel was better. But then as the series started going, they started bringing back all his ideas from the comic books, almost verbatim, given that they had already changed the story and had to move forward as they were. But from what I gather, they're kind of wrapping it the way he did in the books. I forget if I finished the whole story, but I got the 3 massive compendiums. So I'll have to revisit those again at some point.
Yeah.
I like what they did with Negan for sure.
Yeah. Well, he's
evil.
Definitely interesting character. One of the better villains, one of the better like mega bosses that they've dealt with. But they got spin-off movies, they got spin-off shows now.
There's another one coming out, apparently.
The one with the kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like in the future, after they've all kind of recreated society or something, but have to deal with it. And I'm not sure exactly what it was, but that was the gist I took from it.
With the 4 teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Well, a funny joke about Walking Dead is nobody ever wants spoilers. Like, oh, did you watch Walking Dead last night? No, shut up, I haven't seen it yet. And so my joke would be every once in a while, I'll just be like, but the aliens, and they're like, dude, shut up. And so I'm sure you're aware that to sell the Walking Dead graphic novel, Kirkman said that an alien invasion, and I never knew this story until after, for years, I would just randomly bring up, yeah, but the aliens came down, and people were like, shut up. So then finally I hear this backstory that Kirkman was able to get financing or was able to pitch it with the idea that at some point aliens would come down. And they were like, oh, okay, we like it. And then as he's releasing it, he's like, there was never going to be aliens, but do you like my graphic novel? They're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I had read something he said, I believe it was a quote from him talking about how he had talked about the virus being derived from something alien. So that might tie in kind of
still
to what he was. No, not recently. This is years ago. Like back probably when the show first started, I thought he had talked about the virus actually being of a extraterrestrial design or something.
I think that was a lie he made up to get
it. Must be
get it sold.
Because he's never brought it up again.
And so I think it was bullshit he said. And I think I saw that on YouTube or somebody told me, I was like, that's what I've been saying this whole time, but it's my bullshit spoiler. It's my bullshit spoiler to like people that are like, oh, I haven't seen it yet. Don't tell me yet. And I'm like, but the aliens, and then to find out that was his bullshit lie to get it sold. And then he just, but he never went to aliens. I don't think it ever is going to, but.
No, I mean, I think the characters in the show were discussing what it might have come from at some point, and that came up. But outside of that, it's just an afterthought.
Well, now it's now it's so relevant, like to like the quarantine now and COVID, because I think one of the best scenes, I get into so many arguments with a few people that are global warming deniers and or whatever you want to call it, global warming, climate change. It was what was it? It was the first episode of the second season. That doctor in CDC, he was Jim Carrey's buddy in the Truman Show. I forget that actor's name, but that scientist in the CDC, I think he was experimenting on his own wife. And they were like, well, what caused it? What caused it? And he goes, what do you think caused it? We did. Yeah. And then, later on in that episode, he whispers in Rick's ear, which turns out later on that we've all always had it or something like that for however long. But he goes, what do you think caused it? We caused it. And he goes off on this rant and rave. And he goes, and his last, and he ends it with, we burn fossil fuels, for Christ's sake. How stupid is that? And it's like, it dawned on me, like, that exactly, that's it. I mean, we caused it. It's just because COVID is a mix of whatever flus, fecal matters. It was derived at some some exotic zoo / restaurant in China or something. And
there's so many stories at this point.
But it's like
I've resigned myself to knowing I'll never know where it started, whether the Chinese are lying, whether the Trump administration's lying, whether it's even bigger than that. It's like,
but we've got to think about it. It's a mix of all this stupid shit we've been doing for
totally
centuries. You know, smoke, cigarettes, meth, fossil fuel burning, fracking, plastic surgeries.
Well, and on top of all that, it's not like it would surprise you if it was man-made. You know, it could have been a result of anything else, or it could have been perfectly formatted to screw us all up. Yep. You know, who knows? Either way,
we did it. So
yeah, totally.
But I mean, you know, like how prophetic is Walking Dead and 28 Days Later and War of the Worlds, because even War of the Worlds, the aliens died from the common cold.
Yeah.
And now we're dying from a super flu. Stephen King's The Stand.
Well, it's funny, even like the craziest science-based sci-fi stuff from, you know, years and years ago, it's because it is the concept that we eventually make it happen. You know, if we can think of it, it's only a matter of time until, in many cases, some idiot creates it.
Yeah.
But generally, it benefits humanity, generally.
Well, Star Trek, I mean, they thought of bigger, better space travel, but even something as stupid as like the little flip phones that they had, those the communicators, those flip phones that they thought of that were fictional turned into the iPhone. Basically,
there's so much. The warp speed, like you're saying, to travel through time, the flip phones, the laser beams, like all of it, you know, had been conceptualized, you know, leading up to Star Trek. But I think that was the first series that really brought every concept of the future really into one show. And in my opinion, did it right. I've watched that series 3 times over in my life, you know.
The Kirk one?
The Kirk one, hell yeah. I loved it. Yeah.
I might have to, like, you're the third guest on here that's talked about the Kirk, the original series. So maybe because I could never sit down. I could never. It was, to me, it's always stood out as hokey, and kind of cheesy. But the movie Star Trek, the motion picture, blew me away. It was astounding, like the twist and who V'ger was, and even the effects still stand up, more or less. Those effects stand up to today.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, but you definitely got to give the original series another chance. And it is hokey, and you know, there's some super, like the fight scenes are just, oh my god, whoa, you know, like so bad, picking up fake rocks and. But I don't know. I first watched it all the way through when I was in college, and it came on every night, I want to say from midnight until 1 or 2 a.m. So I just binge, even back then.
Yeah.
Binging started. Binge like 2 to 4 episodes every weeknight. And that's the first time I watched the whole series. And I don't know, I had a new respect for it at that point because I'd already watched The Next Generation and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to see the roots of it. And it's great to see, even in like current Star Trek stuff, how they relate back to all of that. Like I think the new series, heard something about a new series coming out, and it's going to be about Captain Pike, who was the character who was in the first episode, the pilot. So there wasn't Kirk, there was Pike, and he immediately got replaced with the legendary
William Shatner's Kirk.
Yeah, William Shatner.
But the guy from Hell's on Wheels is playing Pike.
Anson something.
Yeah, he was Black Bolt in Humans.
Yeah,
and
not a good show.
Not a good show. I tried. I tried. It's Marvel. It's loosely in the MCU, so I really wanted to at least watch it and see how that universe is expanded. And I just could not. I could not even force myself.
I think I eventually finished it, or I've got 1 or 2 episodes left. But I mean, that was watching one every 3 months.
Every 3 months.
Yeah.
No,
I didn't really care, but I was like, okay, I kind of, like you said, anything MCU I'm into. So I wanted to get through it. But, I had trouble. I never finished Cloak and Dagger. I couldn't get through that one.
I don't think I did.
And
yeah.
Runaways, I didn't finish either. But my problem with Runaways, that's another of, in my opinion, that first graphic novel, one of the best stories I've ever read. It's just amazing, and it's fun. And the artist Alfonso something, he just does all the coolest, most unique like clothing styles and everything. So it's just a pleasure to look at, and the story was fantastic. And then, again, by episode 3 or 4 on the TV show, kind of started going in a new direction.
Yeah,
I don't know why they didn't, or why they did that, because I don't feel like that comic was so popular that the fans would have been upset to see it on film, or to everyone new, it was just a great story to redo. So I feel like when they veer off of these fantastic writers' concepts, they usually, kick themselves in the ass doing that.
I think I finished the first season, but then I think the second season I kind of like got distracted. I wasn't stuck to the second season. Like when I very rarely do I kill something in one day. Tiger King, I jumped on way late, but when I finally did, it only took me a day to finish it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Well, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's not comics at all, but it should be. They should make an anime. They should make there should be a graphic novel retelling, because these characters, just the way they look, is the way that main guy Joe King is just he looks like a comic book anti-hero or villain, however you want to look at him. He's so over the top. He looks like an Asgardian on meth, but Tiger King, every single Netflix Marvel property I binged watched in a day. I think Luke Cage season 2 might have took longer, but I think that's because I was in a relationship at the time.
Right.
But every single Punisher season did it in a day. Every single Daredevil season did it in a day. But outside that, Boys, I did that in a day. Tiger King, I did it in a day. Runaways took longer, but I finished it.
I don't think I finished season 2 yet. Yeah, I just trailed off for me.
Yeah. But then, during the quarantine, I kind of reverted from, Marvel and DC, and I was doing like nothing but 80s stuff. Like 80s stuff I've rewatched, 80s stuff I didn't see, but I saw the cover on Tubi or Pluto or Vudu, and I'm like, I remember that cover box at Blockbuster 30 years ago. I got to check this out. And then I did, and I might have been impressed or might not have. But with the plethora of streaming stuff and content, it's endless.
Oh, it is, yeah.
There's this concern, with quarantine and COVID, there's not going to be enough content, and I think they're wrong, man. There's so much new stuff in the last 3 years on Netflix I still haven't watched. I think people are still going to be watching stuff, but I just think like there's this concept in people's minds that you need brand new stuff nonstop all the time. And it's like, I think with what we have, I think we have plenty of stuff to where the companies can stop spending money and just start making money with what they have.
Yeah, I think that's the case in many respects, but we also, my wife and I, we watch the Great British Baking Show when we sit down to eat dinner. So we just watch one episode. Usually, we don't always finish it. Sometimes we'll save it till the next dinner. Mm-hmm. But so this new season 8 just came out on Netflix. So what they did to get the season done, and I know it's more a reality show, or it is a reality show as opposed to like, a fully constructed superhero universe or something. But they literally had all the contestants come quarantine at their base camp so that then they could all go on the show together and finish out the whole season before they get to go home and see their families. And although that's super stressful and crazy, it's a way to get the content out during a time like this.
Yeah, I agree, and I like, but what I also like seeing is people coming up with these workarounds. You know, Tyler Perry with his compound. You know, like he quarantines people from the start,
Hmm.
tests them. Everybody comes up, you know, negative. Everybody comes out negative on the tests. All right, then we produce, and then quarantine for another 2 to 3 weeks after wrap, and then released. And you know, he's putting that money in, he's putting that care and that time. Tyler Perry is. There's another production company that's going hard like that. And these artists and producers and actors, they're hell bent on it. And but then there's a bunch of cool workarounds. There's a horror movie, and I've talked about this probably 10 times already. There's a horror movie called Host on Shudder. I know it's a Shudder exclusive. I don't know if it's available on any other streaming platform, but the whole movie is pretty much clear cut. It is a Zoom record. It's a Zoom movie. You see the whole Zoom interface. They're straight up honest about this is a Zoom happy hour seance that they're having during quarantine, during 2020, during quarantine in the UK. And it's about a seance, and of course they screw it up, and the demon is haunting them through Zoom. And and just seeing like what they were, I can totally production wise see what it is that they did with Zoom,
Mhm.
and maybe at these different locations, and maybe the actors did it themselves. They were slick, and they knew the basics of production on what to shoot, how to shoot, and
Yeah.
then it all gets sent to sorry about that. And then it all gets sent to an editor to probably tap on some After Effects, some animation, some flashy special effects and things of that nature, and it came out phenomenal.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also a big horror buff. My brother's a huge horror buff, so that was the first thing he mentioned. Host, you gotta watch Host, and
Cool. Yeah, I'll check that out.
and it's so within real life that it's only 60 minutes, because if you have a free account, you have more than one person on the call, you're limited to 45 minutes, I think.
Hmm.
It's so realistic the within using Zoom to have a
Right.
social,
Yeah. Yeah.
happy hour, and nobody has a paid account. All right, it's gonna be a 45. I mean, they made it an hour, so I don't know how they pulled that off, but it's only gonna be a 45-minute social happy hour. Everybody has to hang up and then call back in, right? You know, if
Mhm.
you remember, I remember in April we were doing that, but then I finally had to get an licensed paid account, for like all this other crap that I'm doing. But I like when the Zoom call shut off. I won't spoil the ending, but when the Zoom call shut off, I was like, "Holy shit, you're right! It's an hour-long movie. It's an hour-long call on Zoom."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's definitely worth the watch. But from there, I mean, I'm glad to hear that. There's a few things that you kind of hit a road bump, and I wouldn't say a roadblock, like just a road bump, but you're still creating, you're still productive. What's next on the agenda? I mean, and a lot of times who I have is filmmakers and actors, so I would say, have you been back on set? But you're still creating, animating,
Yeah.
writing.
No. I'm actually loving working from home right now. I've started working on a couple other projects. I fairly recently I redid my whole website to make it like I was working with some other people and we had some group projects going on, and we decided to kind of just go in our own directions a little bit. So I refocused my whole website, made it about me, put some art galleries up, 4 different art galleries up of different styles of work I've done. I've got my video game and film galleries up. So for instance, if you click on any one of the films I've worked on, you go to Avengers, it's got some behind the scenes stuff, all the trailers on there. I've got like 30 different posters they released for the film. So just fun little stuff along with what I did on the film and talk about what my experience was. So it was kind of fun to get back and redo my website that way. And I'm doing my new YouTube channel, starting a Patreon site. I've started a series of time-lapse style tutorials. So for instance, I sit down and draw basically like a nearly photoreal kind of eye, and I record the whole process, and you just see it from, initial sketches all the way to finished painting. And then I've gone in and added notes with little avatars of my own face up there, talking to the watcher saying, oh, well, this is what I did here. Or if you want to accomplish this, do this. You know, if you draw teeth, don't draw every black line between the teeth. It's hideous. You know, keep them clean and crisp, you know, little things like that, just to give people an idea of, you know, what I'm doing, where they can take their own art, and really trying to, you know, retain that artist or that audience viewership. You know, like too often, you know, I'm sure we all do it. We'll start watching a video and we just skip through trying to find something more interesting in it, or, you know, just skip it and move on to the next video. So I'm trying to create something that's a little more interactive. You know, you're not just sitting there watching the time lapse, for instance. You're getting to see some pop-ups, some bubbles, some notes, a couple jokes. I've got 2 bands who gave me their full portfolio of music to use on all the videos. So every video has at least one song that's like the length of the video that I personally think is really good music. I know everybody has their own tastes and whatnot, but it's an opportunity to try and do something new. And I feel like it's a good way for me to reboot my YouTube channel and really try and build it, because it's nowhere right now. Like, I haven't really put any effort into it. So yeah, I'd like to get to the point where I have 100 subscribers, get my own, you know, domain name or whatever you call it, build it up from there, and really just see where I can take it. And merge all my social medias together and just keep doing my comic book along the way.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
Yeah. I mean, well, that kind of answers my next question, was what's next on the agenda. But yeah, well, no, it's you know, just like you said, it's for some of us, this has kind of been a blessing in disguise, and or finding, you know, it really hasn't been a blessing for, you know, the country or the world. It has been, it has been a struggle. It has, you know, people have died from this, but, you know, each person has to, you know, work on surviving it and staying healthy and minimize the loss, but also what's the best use of this time, and how, what's the bright side. And it's a cliche. It's a cliche, but there's a reason why it's a cliche. You know, you have to find the bright side of this, that, and the other thing, and create, stay productive, stay creative, stay proactive. The bright side of it, you know, and that's fantastic. That, yeah, I'm glad that you're just pushing through and making stuff, you know. Dude,
try to, man, you know. And specifically to what's coming next is, along with the channel and everything, I'm going to, as I draw my new comic, my issue 1 of Dark Sub Rosa, I'm literally going to do a tutorial showing every single step as to how I create a comic book, from the script to the layouts to how I design bubbles in Photoshop, but then how I get that text into those bubbles and ensure it's interactive, and I can always update anything at any point I need through the process. So I think it'll, you know, having done 2 full comics at this point, I think I have a lot to share. So I'm hoping people really dig what I've learned, and will be able to utilize it themselves as well. But man, yeah, it's not easy for everybody. My wife's an esthetician, so she's supposed to be in there giving people face rubs and massages. And yeah. I mean, her business is just plummeted during this thing. She's still working. She gets a couple clients a week, but they're all going in there wearing masks, the full screen setups, washing hands constantly. It's not been easy. You know, I think those of us who work on the computer have it made, you know?
Yeah, no, I only got 1 professional haircut. And if you go back to like some of the earlier episodes of this podcast, you can tell. But I only got 1 professional haircut during this whole quarantine, and later today I'm about to get my second one, because the the haircuts were presentable, I guess, but it wasn't like a good, you know, it wasn't a good high fade like I like. It wasn't smooth. Even when I got my first professional one, which I think was August, or it might have been August when I got, or July. The barber was like looking at it like, is this your first professional haircut since the quarantine? And I said, yeah. Said, okay, I can tell. I'm going to fix this up, Because just the way, you know, certain things or certain, the line might have been like crooked. He goes, no, this is going to look good. and you're safe. None of us have it. We're still all going to wear masks. And so, you know, I got to sit there with a mask and just take it off for that one, take that one, got to hold it on and take the one ear off. And then he gets around that ear and then take the other ear off and hold it. And he gets that one ear and he's like, okay, we're good with the ears. And then you sit there with a mask on during a haircut, man. It's awesome.
Yeah,
you know,
man. My wife just found a picture of me from last October, the first day of Inktober. She took a picture of me drawing. And my sides were shaved. I had short hair on the top. This is what we're dealing with a year later.
Yeah, man.
It's fucked. I have not seen a barber at all, but it's looking pretty good long. So I'm like, hey, you know, roll with it.
Once I'm done with my military service, I'm gonna let the beard. I'm gonna get the Barringer beard and the Barringer hair, and I'm gonna rock it. And I might get creative, you know, like long on the top and kind of like trimmed on the side and. You know, like that new cool mullet that, you know, like the Spec Ops guys got, you know, whatever. But maybe we'll wait. We'll burn that bridge when we get there and oh
yeah, man.
Experiment with the beard.
2 months ago, this was just a poof. And we were going to do a Zoom session with a bunch of friends from Vancouver. And my wife was like, no, she shaved it all down.
Trimming it. Yeah, no, I plan on doing that. I only shave. See, I'm in the National Guard, so I only have to shave once a month. Nice. So I shave once for the drill weekend, and then by the time the weekend's gone, my wife has her favorite scruff back because she likes the scruff.
Right.
But you know, like as far as like the long big poof stuff, you know, there's that electric comb you can get. Electric comb that kind of, it's like what women have for straightening their hair. It does that. It heats it, kind of straightens it down, and then maybe takes scissors to get it out of the mouth. Yeah, but it'll groom it. It's like an electric comb and stuff.
I had to do that today.
Yeah,
I was getting the curlies over the lips. I can't deal.
I can't deal with that either, man.
No, man.
There was 2 summers ago. I had let it go the whole summer, and then we went to Sweden. And I didn't, and I think I forgot to pack all the shaving and stuff. She goes, you don't bring it. I want like a full beard. And I wish I brought at least like, you know, little scissors because it was in the mouth. I could actually like, you know,
it's too much, man.
It's too much. Yeah. You got to
even the last time, this is a few weeks ago, I kissed my wife and I was like, I can't even feel anything. Like all I'm getting is my own hair against my face.
Yep.
Yep. No good.
Yeah, man. But what's you know, speaking of which, what's your view of the, we kind of touched upon it, but what's your view of the new normal?
I mean, it's not fun. Like that's my biggest issue is, you know, even before this all started, I've been working at home. You know, I wake up in the morning, have my coffee, get some breakfast, and then usually just jump right on the computer and I work till, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 at night. And then I used to be able to go out, have a beer, you know, go get some dinner, even just get out and be around people just for the sake of it, go to the mall, go shopping, whatever. And now that we can't do that, it's like I've got my same routine that I had before the pandemic without any of the get out and release yourself from this work mode or computer life you're living. My wife, you know, she still heads out to work every day. So at least she has a little in and out of the house. She sees some other people, talks to some other people. Yeah. And for me, it's all digital at this point, which is a little weird. We did have a new shopping center open, a couple restaurants with outside tables, and I'm still down to do that. If we can sit on a patio somewhere, we're not too close to others outside, I'm fine. I don't freak out about it. But sitting inside, hanging out with people at this point, I just don't want to do it, you know?
Yeah. We go to a couple of places like that have big space for that outside seating. And so we'll do that every once in a while. Go there with masks, you know, put a blanket over the kid's stroller. And then if, you know, when we got everything, the waiter's not there and there's people, we'll take the mask off, obviously to eat, we'll take the blanket off of the stroller and it's the 3 of us just, you know, hanging out, dining out. And that's every once in a while, you know, like every other weekend maybe. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Well, as far as like my work and my lifestyle has gone, it's kind of like half of that because I mean, I miss set life, but at the same time, at the same time, I was doing a lot of live streaming at, conferences, traveling. That's all done here now. And so I'm still busy doing that. I'm still plenty busy writing, prepping, scheduling, and just waiting for the floodgates to open at that point. But as far as like the paid work goes, it's a lot of remote editing. It's a lot of virtual live streaming conferences, maybe a voiceover gig, every blue moon if someone books me for that. I've been doing a lot of submissions for voiceover auditions, and I nailed one. So awesome. I nailed two my whole life. I nailed one during the quarantine. So maybe that as that progresses, but
do you still go to the studio for something like that, or do you do that from home?
Won't. Yeah. I won't. No, I'm gonna do. I prefer to do that from home. I kind of had to. So with like being on set, crew gigs, that's out, and acting is out, and a lot of my, and it's about 50-50. There's a lot of guests. There's a lot of previous guests that are creatives in such a way that they're able to work from home. I mean, this new normal has been their old normal. Like yourself. It's essentially this new normal is the old normal, with the exception of going out and socializing. As far as work goes and as far as creativity, it's always been here. And years ago, in the last 4 years, I've been trying to set that up for myself. And so when this thing hit, it was like, okay, podcast, start the podcast for a third time, edit a bunch of stuff in the can. And then people saw the podcast and said, oh, dude, we're doing the virtual live streaming events now. So no sweat. They sent me, some more high-end gear for the corporate stuff, and no problem. That's what I've been doing because I had everything else set up for that. But yeah, a lot of folks I had on were actors, and some of them are starting to get back on set. Sets are starting to open up again. Some directors have been back on set, but it's been skeleton crews, skeleton cast, completely rewriting the script in such a way as the locations and the amount of people, and probably rewriting the scripts or re-prepping the shoots in such a way that they're doing it on a very skeletal crew. But I just had, like, out of safety for the family, out of security, I kind of had to put stipulations that I did the COVID compliance officer certification. So I'll go on set for that, and I'll drive, but I won't fly. I won't fly for any reason.
No, man. No.
So yeah. So I'll drive to a set to be a COVID compliance officer because I know that'll be safe because I'm running that compliance. So I know I'll be super strict, and I'll make sure it's safe because I'm running that aspect of it.
Totally. Yeah. That makes sense.
If there's a shoot, see, I'm pretty much right outside Bethesda, right outside DC. So if there is a shoot in this area, and there was plenty of stuff going on, and they're starting to pick that up again. But if it's a 15-minute drive, and I'm assured that it's COVID compliant and safe, I might. But I've been so busy with the virtual stuff that there's been no need for me to go on set probably for the rest of this year. So I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, it'll be a while before things are back to normal, for sure.
Back to a safe new normal. But we're going to see the way things have been going remotely and virtual now, is that's going to be how things are done, how half of the things are done now. Because they're going to take a look at, okay, Microsoft was at the convention center in 2019. It was like it was like $1 million event for 5 days. And then in 2020, Microsoft did it all virtual. The Microsoft convention was 5 days virtual for $150,000. All the same events, all the same new gadgets, and all the new tech was advertised. All the same experts were there. All the same experts had their slides. They did the split screen with them on camera, with their screen share, their slides. Mm-hmm. All the same information, all the same guests, all the same advertisement, all the same attendance online for 10%, 15% of the budget.
Yeah, it's amazing.
2021, maybe do hybrid. 2022, stick with hybrid. 2021, stay completely virtual. 2022 and 2023, do it hybrid because.
Well, I think it's going to be a mixed bag because I've already had 3 different guys hit me up about doing shows as soon as February next year. So, you know, of course I said, yeah, I'm happy to be there, assuming, you know, we can do it in a safe manner. But no, I'm not going to go to a big comic convention right now and stand in the middle of a room with hundreds of sweaty people just blah, 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 and chatting you up. And,
masks.
you know, that's just, no, thanks. No.
Masks or no masks. Yeah.
Even with masks, no. Like there is some events going on in Jacksonville in a couple months that they're doing outdoors. I'm really not in the mood to drive down to Jacksonville right now to do them, but I think that's a smart way to handle these kind of comic shows for the time being. Just get yourself a big field, rent some tents, and keep everybody outside at least.
And it's still in person. It's not a virtual. It's still in person. It's probably cheaper to get like just an open area, open space.
I know.
And
as opposed to renting a giant, you know, production
casino
studio.
or the convention center or the hotel. I mean, the last two big Comic Cons I went to, WinterCon was at the casino in outside Jamaica, Queens, and then MagFest and something else. I can't remember the name of it now. But MagFest was at the Gaylord, which is a huge, gargantuous hotel. But you're right, man. If you just find like a property, you know, a farm. Most states have farmland, and you just book a huge property, probably a tenth of the price. And
I would think it'd be cheaper overall.
Pop-up tents.
Yeah. Whatever.
No, exactly. And you just and that's going to be one of your vendors is going to supply these pop-up tents, these cool like things. And even though it's not comic book related, that vendor is probably going to get a lot of hits. Like, dude, your pop-ups are dope, man. Like, let's talk.
I could build their business for the next 3 years, however long this plays out. Yeah.
Yep.
But no, man, I'm kind of hoping the world doesn't go back to the old normal because, you know, I know, like I said, I left the industry, but a lot of my close friends from the VFX industry, they've all been able to take their computers home. They're all working from home. They're still doing their meetings every day. They're still getting their work done every day. And, you know, when it comes to studios like Disney and Marvel, they do like to keep a tight rein on things. They want everyone in-house working on their projects, you know, for security reasons. They don't like leaks to get out and whatnot. But I think this is going to be proof to some extent, I hope, that they can trust the people working for them to be from home, to not share this information, to not get hacked on a regular basis. And I think it will provide people with healthier lifestyles in general. You know, we used to work, if we were lucky, we'd work an 8-hour day. Normally it's 10 to 12. And if you're crunching, you're going to be doing, you know, 12 hours a day, Monday through Sunday, you know, weeks in a row, potentially. And they will pay you for your time. But the urge, the need to get things out quick with like film and TV production, it's really hard on the people who work those jobs. And I think this, by letting people work from home, will give people the opportunity to have more life, not driving to and from work, being able to take a reasonable lunch break away from their computer, spend more time with their families. Even if they're still working their same hours, they're not going to be doing the commute and that just forced extra work time. So I hope we evolve with our new normal and understand that people's lives are more important than some of these work schedules.
And that was the first thing that's the first thing I was going to say is eliminating that commute is adding hours to my work time.
Totally. Yeah.
And not only that, but like
or home life.
Exactly. And home life, you know, like you could have the kid, you know, sitting right next to me. He might be reading a book. He might be in a playpen. He might be in a rocker. He might be watching an iPad or reading a book right next to me, you know, doing his thing. And I could take a 5-minute break and that 5-minute break and just having him or her right next to me, playing with the kid, you know, talking to the spouse. I walk upstairs, I check in on the wife, and she checks in on me. She comes down here and checks in on me. And whether it's the podcast, which is, you know, the passion project, or whether it's the virtual corporate stuff that I'm streaming out, or if it's a remote editing gig, we're still like not just texting. We're face to face, physically touching, you know, hugging, talking
Exactly. Yeah.
with each other. And that is going, and I think clearly that is going to be what the new normal is. And I think the new normal is actually more appreciation of the social, a bigger appreciation of that social aspect. Just the 7 months, just this roughly 7 months. I mean, it's going to end up being a year, maybe even two of social distancing. So once drastic, strict social distancing isn't required, we're going to have an appreciation of socializing and gatherings, but we're also going to be more cognizant of social distancing and being careful and staying healthy. But those moments,
and I think on top of that, like, I hope everyone gets to the point where they're happy to go back to work, you know. But at the same time, I hope we don't, as a nation, throw ourselves back into our overworking. Like, hopefully you're right in that we create this balance now moving into the new normal. We appreciate being social again, but we also appreciate, hey, there is another way to live that doesn't mean crunch, crunch, crunch.
You know, like I remember 10 years ago, everybody's talking about this laissez-faire. What is it? The 4-day work week, the 4-day work week, and then the 6-hour work day. And everyone's like, what do we do? And I'm like, shit, just stay home.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us can do all this stuff teleworked. My sister-in-law is a social worker, so I get it. She has to make those visits. Yeah. She can go from home to visit a case and then go back home.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, commercial real estate. I mean, I get it. It's important to have some sort of headquarters, and obviously it's important to have a warehouse. You know, there's gigs, you know, that we do that it goes without saying. You've got to have gear and you got to have a warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's productions that have to have a lot of gear and big lights and big cameras and, you know, big jibs and cranes and all that stuff. You got to have that because there still is that necessity to have big productions. And then there's the studio warehouses. You worked on an Endgame. It's that huge studio warehouse with a lot of equipment and a lot of lights, a lot of cast and crew in there, a lot of sound equipment and camera equipment and props and etc. But at the same time, once that's done, it doesn't have to be an editing warehouse. It can be
and more so in my case in particular with VFX, we're remote outside of the big studio houses, but we've got our own studio house that every VFX artist, you know, hopefully shows up at the same place or one or two locations. Like we had one in LA and Vancouver, and now it's branched out into like 5 different places around the world. But nonetheless, just there definitely is a need to have that space. But I guess the way I would look at it is, I mean, as a supervisor, I had 5 or 6 meetings a day. So it's better if we're all there. But in the end, we're on screens with other people in 2 or 3 other places at the same time for all of these meetings. So it's like, do we need to be there? You know, we're all looking at a screen, sometimes with only one person on it anyway.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's what I hope can change. Like, you don't have to be there at 8 or 9 in the morning just so then you can go to a room with one other person and get on a screen with another person. Like, we could probably all do that from home, drinking coffee, hard at work, but in our pajamas drinking coffee. You know, that's the kind of thing I'd like to change, at least in the VFX industry.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, the final product is the final product.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what chair you're sitting in isn't going to make a difference in the long run.
What structure you're in, whether your house or the building, or where you're working, at the end of the day, or what you're wearing, you know. But at the end of the day, the content ends up still being the content. The final product ends up still being the final product. So.
Yeah, and to what you started the conversation saying, the 4-day work week, for instance, like even just doing that, and then every Friday everyone works from home, just something to give people the concept that they're being treated well, that they have their home life, that they're not always at work. Like I swear, between sleep and work, I was at home 2 to 4 hours a day if I was lucky.
Yeah,
you know, that's not how we want to live. Right?
Exactly. And that, and like I said, I was blessed somewhere with that hindsight to start setting this up years before the quarantine hit. You know, when we started dating, I kind of had this hindsight. I know she's going to want to get married and have kids and soon. And I decided that's what I wanted with her as well. So if I'm going to be doing this, knowing with all the set time that will be coming, I want to have at least a way to eliminate a lot of that office or editing time away from home and do it here. And maybe even set up a broadcast where I can start doing my own thing and making the thing my thing. Yeah. And set it up in the basement, set it up in the loft or you know, in a sunroom, you know, not letting the gear overheat and blow up, but maybe in the sunroom, and it'd be like a nice, you know, setup somewhere in the house, in the lounge, in the loft, in the basement, in the dungeon, in the laundry room, wherever. And right now it's in the laundry room, but nobody would ever know that because it's because I have that experience with like set and light and signal flow and technical gear and so on and so forth.
Yeah, totally.
And the cameras and the mics and such. So yeah, I mean, but it's like I was, you know, luckily I wanted to kind of have like that sanctity and that luxury of working from home to an extent, which benefited me in the long run here. And hopefully we're able to still pull that off for, you know, for everybody else we mentioned. And it's like, clearly that's what we've been doing and it's been working. It broke, we fixed it. A year or two, it broke, we fixed it. Mm-hmm. So now 2 years from now, it ain't broke. Why fix it? Maybe alter it. Yeah. I agree with you more, but in reverse, 4 days a week working from home, and then on a Thursday or a Friday, you know, go to the office, the small little office with the crew meet, you know, the studio meet. That's when you start micromanaging and looking over people's shoulder and seeing, because the project's shared online or what have you. It's a huge online database, and so this is awesome, man. You know, this is like, all right, time for the second cut, and this, and maybe should do some nodes, some markers on that Thursday or on that Friday, and then go home. And the next week you're working on those nodes, those markers, those notes, whatever, and nodes or notes. Or markers, whatever you guys use.
In VFX, you know, the one thing that, you know, there's always a time during the project where it's important to all be together. But, you know, like generally at the end of or middle of the day, we would do what's called, you know, dailies. Mm-hmm. And we'd all go sit in a big dark studio, like a movie theater inside of our office. And we'd run through all the new takes that people have done on any new shot that they've been working on, whether it be minute adjustments to a hair color or seeing how a new muscle system works on a new rig or whatever else. You know, that can last, you know, an hour or more, depending on how many cuts you have to take, how many people you need to revisit their work. But I see the importance of everyone being in a big room to do that together. But again, maybe we call it every other dailies or whatever you want, just to give people the option to have a little bit more life, you know?
Weeklies, yeah, because do you call it rendering or exporting? And how much time is wasted at the office rendering? Exporting.
I mean, it's getting insanely better than it used to be, obviously.
Agreed. But, yep.
You know, years ago, back in early 2000s when I was doing this, even as a student, and we would kick off renders, and we'd be working with smaller concepts at the time just because we knew what it was going to take, and you'd still be rendering 30 frames for 3 days,
Yeah.
So obviously it's not like that anymore. But the problem is now that we have the ability to render much more high quality, high concept ideas and graphics, we're trying to do 10 times more than we used to. So it's always going to be like we're trying to push the computer to do more than it's capable of doing.
Yes.
So whenever it meets us, we shoot ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, the amount of time spent rendering, it can be considered a waste of time if you don't have multiple machines. Luckily, in most big VFX houses, every artist, kind of depending on your job, but pretty much every artist is going to have 2 different computers, at least 2 different monitors to be working on at any given time. So those compers or lighters can constantly be rendering something bigger and better while they're touching up what they're doing, getting quick versions of the renders, while they wait. So, that just takes more money. Throw money at it and you can get something done faster. But to your point, yeah, like people don't need to be at the office all the time just waiting for these things to render through. We can get updates on our phones at this point from our computers whenever something's finished.
Yeah.
We need to go back in, send it out. We can automate most of that stuff at this point without even touching it again after we hit the render button. So yeah, I think there needs to be a change just to make everyone's quality of life better.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, what's one last bit of advice, or one last point, or a few points you'd want to make for our viewers? One last bit of advice.
Well, generally most of the interviews I do are strictly art-based. So anything I would say to any of those artists out there is, whatever you're doing, it doesn't happen overnight. Don't expect a magic button. It's all about, focusing hard on what you enjoy and make sure it's something you really care about and you're going to want to be doing next week, next year, a couple of years from now. But whatever it is, drawing, painting, sculpting, just stick to it. It's all about time put in. I mean, there is such a thing as talent to some extent. And some people just have a better eye for things, but anyone can get where they want to go if they put in that extra effort. And my other point, just with everything that's going on in the world right now, we're going to have to get through this. Stay positive. It's not easy. We all are having our ups and downs right now, and get out there and vote. I think that's the most important thing we can all do as Americans right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need some drastic change in November. I already voted, and I voted for a major change. And
nice.
take huge advantage of this mail-in, this absentee option, this mail-in option. I wish there was an online option, but still, I think that's decades out, because still have
the security, that'll take a while.
Security, yeah, the security aspect. One day we're gonna have that chip in the brain, and we can just be like right or left, voting right, voting left.
Right, totally.
Or you twitch a nose, independent, whatever. But yeah, man, I mean, mail it in, or just set up that absentee bit so that there's that auto. And I don't even really trust that absentee thing. I don't know if they find like an excuse to just ignore it, but apparently.
Well, I did that mail-in voting commercial, and I stand by it. I think everybody should do it, especially if they have any complications when it comes to going into your local school or church or whatever it is that's hosting the polling station. I say go for it. I do trust it. I think I won't get into more politics here, but I think we've been told it's a negative thing. I do not believe that at all. Nice. I think doing your mail-in voting is a very positive way to get your voice out there. Personally, my wife and I they did change our polling station, we just found out, but the last time we went in there, they had great, social distancing. Everything felt very clean. They had sand sanitizer everywhere. We didn't feel cooped together with others. So just to be safe, we decided we're just going to go in, wear our masks.
I lost you for a second. I don't know if you're still there. I'm sorry, is that the government trying to censor us? Yeah. So I was saying we start talking about voting and all of a sudden the signal goes out. That's a little suspect to me.
It's a whole big conspiracy.
Oh yeah, it's a big conspiracy, and a lot of conspiracies have wound up being true too. So anyway, and but anyway, yeah. Well, I guess yeah, we'll start wrapping up. But yeah, mail-in vote, absentee vote, just in my opinion, anyway, big change.
Yeah, and I think right after we got cut, I probably kept talking for a minute without realizing it was cut for sure. But yeah, my wife and I, we decided we are going to go to our polling place. They just got great social distancing, or at least last time they did. Mm-hmm. So, you know, fear the coronavirus, but do what you can to vote. Just get out there. It's so worth it. Our country literally depends on it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, any last socials, links, plugs you want to put out there?
Well, I don't know. Maybe if I could send you a list of some stuff, maybe you could plug it at the end of the video or whatnot. But yeah, I've got a Patreon page. I'm just starting my YouTube channel. BFWIII.com is the brand new website I was talking about. It's in the works, but there's some stuff on there to check out already. But yeah, just trying to make some moves. So I'd love to see you. Follow me, subscribe to me.
Yeah, man. Links in the description to Barringer's stuff, BFWIII, and his comics and his animation coming out and all that stuff. So Barringer, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It was great chat. A lot of great ideas, a lot of great inspiring, you know, positive, inspiring ideas. And
man, thanks for having me.
I'm continually motivated by you and a number of guests that I've had on. It's just a lot of us just still seeing through the darkness and seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, just working on what we can, however we can, and just staying productive, staying creative, staying
adopt positive. And stay positive. Yeah.
Adapt and overcome. My previous guest just said that, and that's been mentioned numerous times. Even I can't remember if I'm in the Army National Guard. I think it's a Marine quote though.
Oh, is it?
Adapt, improvise, and overcome. Exactly.
Hey, well, that's what we're living with right now.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Well, Barringer, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Check out Barringer's links in the description below. And a quick plug on my end, Landon's MAFIA, Landon August Koya, what is it called? Relapsed again with sarcoma NOS. Had a second or third remission. That's what it's called, remission. But he's still fighting the good fight. And so links to his GoFundMe, you can buy one of these shirts. Proceeds go to him at his pediatric cancer center. Barringer Fox Wingard the third. I can't again, it was a blast having you on. And to my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know Barringer has. And until next time, you know what to do.